There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. You feel it after a long day of wanting things, a better job, a calmer mind, a person who stays, a version of yourself that finally arrives. You chase, you get close, and then the wanting simply relocates itself to something else. Somewhere along the way, you start to suspect that the problem was never the thing you wanted. The problem was the wanting itself, or perhaps how you relate to it. This is not a new feeling. It is, in fact, one of the oldest feelings human beings have recorded. Roughly 2,500 years ago, in 4 unconnected corners of the ancient world, thinkers arrived at 4 different answers to this exact ache. In Rome and Athens, the Stoics said, "Master what you can control, and release the rest." In northern India, the Buddha said, "The wanting itself is the wound. Loosen your grip on it." In the mountains of China, Laozi said, "Stop forcing the river and let it carry you." And in a quiet garden outside Athens, Epicurus said something almost nobody expects, that the answer was simple pleasure, rightly understood. 4 paths, 1 ache. Today we are going to find out which one already matches the way you think. Start with stress, because Stoicism starts there too. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who spent his nights writing private notes to himself, never intended his words for an audience. In what we now call meditations, he wrote a line that has outlived empires. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoic diagnosis is almost clinical. Epictetus, born a slave and later a philosophy teacher, taught that suffering rarely comes from what happens to us. It comes from our judgment about what happens. A delayed flight cannot hurt you. Your belief that it should not have happened that can hurt you for hours. If you are the kind of person who, under stress, instinctively asks, what part of this is actually in my control, you are already thinking like a Stoic. For someone living now, negotiating inboxes, diagnoses, traffic, and headlines that arrive faster than the mind can process them, this is less a philosophy than a triage system. Not everything is yours to carry. The Stoic asks you to sort the pile. Now take desire, the second diagnostic, and the place where the Buddha's teaching begins. Roughly a century before the Stoics, in what is now Nepal, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama left a palace built to give him everything, and concluded that everything was precisely the problem. The Dhammapada opens with a warning that still unsettles. Suffering follows the one who acts from craving, the way a wheel follows the ox that pulls the cart. Where the Stoic sorts the pile, many Buddhist traditions ask you to examine the wanting itself, to notice tanha, the craving that reaches for permanence in a world that offers none. Not suppression, noticing. The practice is to watch a desire arise, watch it change, and watch it pass, the way you would watch weather. If, under the pull of wanting something badly, your instinct is to ask, why do I need this to be permanent? You are already closer to the Buddhist path than you may have realized. For someone scrolling a feed built to manufacture craving every 4 seconds, this is not an ancient artifact. It is, if anything, more relevant now than it was in the 5th century BCE. Now conflict, and this is where Taoism arrives at something almost nobody expects. Laozi, the possibly legendary author of the Tao Te Ching, offered a line that has confused and delighted readers for over 2,000 years. The soft overcomes the hard. The slow overcomes the fast. Water, he observed, does not fight the rock. It simply keeps moving, and in time, the rock is gone. This is wu-wei, often translated as non-action, though a better translation might be effortless action, or acting in accordance with the grain of things rather than against it. Zhuangzi, writing in the following century, told the story of a butcher whose knife never dulled because he cut along the natural spaces in the joint, never forcing it through bone. If, in conflict, your instinct is to look for the path of least resistance rather than the path of greatest force, you may already think more like a Taoist than a Stoic. For someone alive today, in a culture that often equates struggle with virtue, this is a quietly radical idea. Sometimes the wisest response to conflict is not to win it. It is to stop treating it as a fight at all. And now the tradition most people misunderstand entirely. Epicurus founded a school in a garden outside Athens, and to this day his name is attached to indulgence, fine food, luxury, excess. The actual philosophy could not be further from that reputation. Epicurus wrote that the greatest pleasure was not abundance, but the absence of disturbance, ataraxia. And he believed the deepest source of that peace was not wealth, but friendship. He kept his community small, his meals plain, and his door open to companions. Many Epicureans held that most human suffering comes from wanting more than is necessary, chasing status, reputation, or luxury that cannot actually satisfy. The cure was not asceticism, but discernment. Choose the pleasures that leave no residue of anxiety behind them. If you find more contentment in one unhurried dinner with a close friend than in acquiring something new, that instinct has an ancient name. Here is what is strange, and what no single tradition channel will ever tell you. All four of these traditions, born in places that had no contact with one another, arrive at a nearly identical suspicion that most of human suffering is self-manufactured, built from our relationship to control, craving, resistance, and excess, not from the raw facts of our lives. Where they part is on the remedy. The Stoic says, strengthen your reason until judgment no longer misleads you. The Buddhist says, loosen the grip of craving itself, judgment and all. The Taoist says, stop imposing judgment on the world and move with it instead. The Epicurean says, simplify your wants until what remains is easily and calmly satisfied. None of these traditions is wrong about the diagnosis. They disagree, gently and profoundly, about where the work should happen. In the mind's judgments, in its cravings, in its resistance, or in its appetites. That disagreement is not a flaw to resolve. It may be the most honest map we have of the different ways a human being can find their way back to steadiness. So here is the question worth sitting with, longer than the length of this video. When your mind is loudest, under stress, under wanting, under conflict, under temptation, which of these four instincts do you reach for first without being taught to? The Stoics' discipline, the Buddhists' release, the Taoists' surrender, or the Epicureans' simplicity? You may not need to choose only one, but it is worth knowing which one already lives in you, which view resonates with you. Let me know below.